Ladies and gentlemen, our chief guest has marked his way to the hall. Please put your hands together for Shri Mukul Saran Mathur, Additional Member, Commercial Ministry of Railways, Government of India, adjoined by our dignitaries. Very warm welcome, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, as every good thing starts with the name of God, so will this esteemed and prestigious conference of ASSOCHAM India. I request our chief guest to please join us to begin with the lamp lighting ceremony and lighten the auspicious ceremony lamp. Can we have the candle? Meanwhile, I request all our dignitaries to please join us. We have Shri Deepak Sharma, Senior Member, ASSOCHAM and CEO, River Engineering Private Limited. Shri Sanjay Bajpai, Co-Chairman, National Council on Logistics and Warehousing, ASSOCHAM and Executive Director, Container Corporation of India Limited. Shri Animesh Gupta, Decision Scientist, Goldratt Research Labs, USA. Shri Manish Puri, President, Association of Container Train Operations, ACTO. Shri Munish Guge, President, ABB India Limited. Shri D.S. Rajora, Assistant Secretary General, ASSOCHAM India. May this auspicious lamp bring peace, prosperity, and joy to our lives. I request all our dignitaries to please join us on the dais. Welcome again, sir. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to each and every one of you. I'm your host, Diksha Raina, and it gives me immense pleasure and privilege to welcome all of you on behalf of the entire organizing committee of ASSOCHAM India to the conference centered around National Conference, Modernization of Railways for Viksit Bharat. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure and privilege to welcome all our dignitaries present here, including Shri Mukul Saran Mathur, Additional Member, Commercial Ministry of Railways, Government of India. Shri Deepak Sharma, Senior Member, ASSOCHAM and CEO, River Engineering Private Limited. Shri Sanjay Bajpai, Co-Chairman, National Council on Logistics and Warehousing, ASSOCHAM and Executive Director, Container Corporation of India Limited. Shri Animesh Gupta, Decision Scientist, Goldratt Research Labs, USA. And Shri Manish Puri, President, Association of Container Train Operators, ACTO. They'll be joining us shortly. Shri Munish Guge, President, ABB India Limited. And Shri D.S. Rajora, Associate Secretary General, ASSOCHAM India. Let's have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Before we move on, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome our esteemed chief guest. I would like to request Sir Rajora, sir, to please felicitate our chief guest. Can we have the bouquet, please? Let's have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we have an exclusive agenda curated for all of you, without further ado, we'll dive into the conference, and it gives me immense pleasure to welcome Shri Deepak Sharma, Senior Member, ASSOCHAM and CEO, River Engineering Private Limited, to please deliver the welcome address. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good morning to everyone. I have a great pleasure in welcoming our chief guest, Shri Mukul Saran Mathur, Additional Member, Commercial, Ministry of Railway, Government of India, at this conference on Modernization of Railway for Viksit Bharat. I also extend a very warm welcome to all my industry colleagues and the participant. The modernization of railway is crucial for vision of Viksit Bharat. The vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Modi ji, is to make India a 30 trillion US dollar economy in 2047. against as of 3.8 trillion US dollar today. This is an average growth of around 9% per annum, which is going to present unprecedented opportunities as well as challenges. As the backbone of transportation network of the country, railway plays a vital role in connecting cities, towns, remote areas, driving economic growth and the social integration. Modernizing this sector will not only improve efficiency and safety, but also contribute significantly to the sustainable development goals of the country. India has one of the largest networks in the world. It's a cliche, often repeated and said many times, but with a twist. We are the fourth largest network in the world, runs on 68,500 route kilometers. 94% of that is already electrified. It carries almost 1.5 billion metric ton of freight traffic annually, operating 8,500 trains on daily basis. It also carries a passenger traffic of 8.5 billion per annum, operating 13,500 trains on daily basis. Its rolling stock consists of 15,000 locomotives, 320,000 wagons, and 85,000 passenger coaches. It's a matter of pride for me as an Indian. The adoption of cutting-edge technologies across the various components of the transportation system, like the rolling stock, wayside power supply system, civil infrastructure, and advanced technology for the signaling, is at the core of the railway modernization. Implementation of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and automation in railway operation can enhance the real-time monitoring, predictive maintenance, and operational efficiency. These innovations will help reduce travel time, improve punctuality, and provide a seamless travel experience for passengers. The Indian Railways is challenged by a multitude of complexities in a rapidly changing transportation landscape. The aging infrastructure needs upgradation to keep up with the growing demand of the market. Customer satisfaction is a constant struggle, as does the imperative of safety in a system of such magnitude. The rise of the alternative transportation options adds to the pressure to modernize. Upgrading railway infrastructure like the track, rolling stock, bridges, stations, etc., is essential to support the growing demand for the rail transport. This includes the construction of the new rail lines, electrification of the existing tracks, and the modernization of the railway stations. The encouraging fact here are, in the last 10 years, Indian Railway has electrified 40,000 route kilometers. It's a huge jump considering the 1.4 kilometer a day 10 years back, that was the pace of the electrification, against the 18 kilometers per day, which is the rate of electrification now. During the same period, the 23,000 conventional passenger coaches have been replaced by the LHB coaches, which has the better riding index, safety features, and host of other onboard amenities for the passengers. Modernizing the railway with a focus on sustainability is a key to achieving a Viksit Bharat. Electrification of railways, coupled with the adoption of renewable energy sources like solar and the wind power, will reduce the carbon footprint of the sector. Initiatives such as the energy-efficient trains, waste management system, and water conservation techniques will contribute to a greener and the more sustainable railway network. The modernization of railway should also prioritize the improvement in the passenger experience. This includes the introduction of the modern amenities at the stations as well as on board on the rolling stock, such as the Wi-Fi, clean sanitation facilities, and the comfortable seating. The integration of the digital platforms for ticketing, real-time tracking, and the customer feedback will enhance convenience and ensure a user-friendly experience. Safety and security remains paramount in the modernization of railways. Upgrading signaling system with the advanced technologies, installing CCTV system at facilities, stations, inside trains, and implementing robust emergency response protocols are essential measures to protect passengers. The adoption of anti-collision devices, automatic train protection system, and centralized traffic control would further enhance the safety of the railway operations, reducing the risk of accidents. There has been an impetus given to the installation of Kavach system, which is a safety system on track as well as on the locomotive, as it works in integration. As on date, almost 1,500 route kilometers are already covered with the Kavach, with 150 locomotives installed with the system. Besides that, there are plenty of other systems which are being deployed in the railway system, railway network, such as the intrusion detection system, electronic interlocking system, interlocking of the level crossing gates, vigilance control devices on the locomotive for the alertness of the pilots, the track circuiting at the stations to see the engagement of the platforms, the GPS-based fog detection system, fire detection system, and the suppression system for wayside facilities as well as on board. So these are the systems which are being put into the network progressively. Freight transportation is a critical component of the railway network, and its modernization is essential for boosting the economic growth. The development of DFCs, the dedicated freight corridors, will enhance the efficiency of cargo movement across the country. The corridors will allow the faster and the more reliable transportation of goods, reducing logistic cost, supporting industries such as agriculture, manufacturing, and e-commerce. Additionally, the modern logistic hubs and the intermodal terminals will further streamline supply chain and promote trade. Enhancing connectivity to port and the industrial corridors will further accelerate economic development. The modernization of railway will require a huge amount of skilled workforce, thus opening the opportunities for employment and the skill development. The training programs in the areas such as advanced engineering, digital technologies, and the project management will be essential to build a capable workforce. This initiative will not only create jobs, but also empower local communities, thus contributing to the broader goal of inclusive growth. The Make in India initiative of Government of India supports the indigenization of railway technologies by encouraging domestic production of the railway component and systems. Indian Railway is increasingly engaging in the public-private partnership to boost the local manufacturing capability and the technology development. Vande Bharat trains made under this initiative showcase India's capability to produce modern high-speed trains. The modernization of India's railway is a strategic imperative for achieving the vision of Viksit Bharat. By embracing technology, enhancing infrastructure, prioritizing sustainability, and improving the passenger experience, India can build a world-class railway network. This will serve as a catalyst to boost economy, growth, social equity, and environmental stewardship, propelling the nation towards a developed future. With these words, I'll put my hand to the voice here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your words of wisdom. With that, I now invite Sri Sanjay Bajpai, Co-Chairman, National Council on Logistics and Warehousing, Chairman, Executive Director, Container Corporation of India Limited, to please deliver the address. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would have thought that Mukul Mathur would probably speak prior to me. Railways and its modernization is a large subject. I, from Concord, would like to talk about what happens at the terminals and what happens in freight logistics. At the terminals, that is where the exchange and change of mode takes place. That is where we experience a different kind of railways, whether it is railway stations or at goods sheds or at manufacturers' sidings. That is where technologies mesh and integrate. And that is where also the challenges start arising. At the ground level are the challenges of arranging intermodal transportation, of warehousing, of getting the information networks to mesh together, of various stakeholders, not just railways. Customers want their systems to be integrated too. The customs, they want their system to be integrated along with the railways. So a site of a terminal becomes a place where all these forces and technologies mesh. And that is where the customer's experience of railways also begin. If you close your eyes and try to remember, see, there is an experience of traveling by train, and then there's an experience of getting off the train and finding your way home. In Concord, we just help your cargo find its way home. Sometimes cargo needs to stay, sometimes it needs to move. And what are we doing about it? What is it that can be done? First is modernizations of the terminals themselves. So railways have an excellent Gati Shakti policy, which is driving growth and which is driving innovation, which is also a part of the Prime Minister's Gati Shakti mission. The scale of that mission is breathtaking. Every detail can be worked out, pre-planned, before it is implemented. The various modalities can be meshed. And I think that is where railways is drawing a lot of its strength. Where to build terminals, how to design the layouts. All this is emerging from there. Railways themselves are an excellent entity. And one of the major things that railways have done is introduction of dedicated freight corridor, which is one technology which has actually reduced unit costs, not just given more value in terms of faster transportation, but also reduced cost. That has induced challenge at the level of terminals, which need to be modernized. And these terminals are not just in the hinterland, they are also at the ports. So we have excellent pipeline of DFC reaching ports, which are today struggling to handle the traffic. So when we look at modernization, I would like to draw your attention to what happens to the cargo and passengers once they leave, and building them together. And I think there have been great strides in them. The last mile connectivity of cargo. We have tried to bring in the LNG transportation to bring down ESG. We have tried to introduce artificial intelligence, machine learning at our terminals so that there can be 100% cargo visibility. These are the things that need to be done at a wider scale if we want to harness the infrastructure which railways is creating on a massive scale, which needs now to be populated and integrated so that traffic can be driven from road to rail, which is a more economical mode of transportation. I'm sure Mr. Mukul Mathur will dwell on the subject of modernization of railways per se themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, I now invite Shri Animesh Gupta, Decision Scientist, Goldratt Research Labs, USA, to please deliver the address. Welcome, sir.
Namaskar. Thank you so much for inviting me to on the stage with an August gathering here. I was expecting the State Minister of Railways also, but somehow I don't find him here. So although we have other senior people, professionals from the industry over here. So I would start with a small note. Like last year, I was present in a similar gathering where we were talking about 27% to 45% or 40% of freight by rail. And this is where probably we are about 16 or 17. That was in February 2023, I believe so. And we are away like say 15, 16 months, and probably in Mr. Lahoti used to be the chairman in those days, and he had given certain stats which said like they had 27%, and the total breakup of the freight in those days was 45% was coal, 17% was iron ore, and 38% was others. And the basic enablers, which in a very long report which Mr. Lahoti, the then chairman of Railway Board, had given it to us. Infrastructure and other things which I believe our colleague has also given certain things, the two of us, two gentlemen before me. They have given something, and probably Mr. Mathur is also going to elaborate more on what has happened in last 15 months. There is one thing which I was then working with a company called Jindal Steel and Para as their group president and their chief of logistics. And very recently I have moved out of India, and I keep coming to India. So I work for a company called Goldratt Research Labs, where I am a decision scientist, and right decision making at right time is what the science is. And this is what I do now for all processes, be it a manufacturing process or be it a service process like what railway is presently doing. I believe there is lot of gap, because I see it from inside India as well as from outside as a grown economy from US also. So there are a lot of gaps. So not to mention lot of them, but what we have come up, like there will always be gaps. But हम कहाँ पहुँच गए हैं आज? This is more important, and we should clap for the railways for what they were in 2023 and what they are now. So there was a big mishap near Bhubaneswar. There was a railway accident. How they have taken over, like it was a total congestion. Since I was working in those days in east of India, we had 3 plants over there. And lot of cargo was supposed to be, like our steel, predominantly the raw material also come in through railway, and the finished good also is moving out through railways. And we had about 45 to 50% of railway usage, and rest was the roadways which we were using. In Hindi we say chakka jam had happened, completely chakka jam. And I met the then general manager of East Coast Railways, Mr. Sharma, Manoj Sharma used to be there. And since we were implementing theory of constraints through Goldratt Research Labs from the USA, I took a 15-minute session with him, and I told him, and I gave him a good piece of advice, how constraints can be taken up, addressed, and can be subordinated to be a better thing for the process. And he said कि अनिमेश जी मुझे तो आपने समझाया, एक बार रेलवे मंत्री को जरूर समझा दीजिए. So it was nice on him to frankly tell me that, and I could meet Mr. Ashwani Vaishnav, the then railway minister. Again, he is again the railway minister. So I met him, and he being an engineer, so he could understand what I was talking. And probably in 3 weeks to 4 weeks time, the congestion was completely taken off. Now we need to understand why such things in a organization like railways, which is one of the biggest PSUs of this country, Bharat, why it could not have been done earlier. So there is lot of legacy which is there. There is हम हिंदी में बोलते हैं सफ़ेद हाथी है, उसको हिलाते 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 भी हिलता है. So good in last 2-3 years, things have started moving. Now they are speeding up, and probably they will still move ahead. There is lot of, last time there was a gentleman, I don't remember his name, but he mentioned there is lot of unlearning to happen with the Indian Railways, and then the learning to happen. Probably I would request the other dignitaries and throughout the day, let us understand what unlearning has happened, and what it is still to happen, and what learnings we have to take. With that, I welcome you all, and let us proceed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for beautifully setting the context. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I now invite Shri Manish Puri, President, Association of Container Train Operators, ACTO, to please deliver the address. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Apologies first for being a little late to get onto the dais. Traffic and congestion led to that problem, and I guess that's exactly what Animesh was talking about. What I want to focus on very briefly, and there is a session, I believe, later in the day when we will be discussing issues related to rail freight. So I don't want to get into a lot of detailing excuse me, at this stage. What I want to talk about are 3 macro drivers that, from the industry perspective, especially from the perspective of containerized rail transport, that we see as affecting the Indian railways or impacting the Indian railways, and in turn leading to the need for greater containerized rail movement and greater rail movement as a whole. And these drivers are obviously linked with the development story that India is undergoing, the growth that we are undergoing, and the focus in that growth. The first is an expected and an ongoing increase in trade volumes, especially in volumes of exports. When there is an increase in exports, given the fact that a lot of trade is increasingly now moving as containerized trade, there is an increase in demand for containerized movement. So that's one driver that we see likely to impact in the coming years. On the domestic side, there are two drivers. There is a lot of focus that the current government has towards development of infrastructure. That comes with a lot of construction activity. And if you look at the logistics output of that, besides the fact that you're actually developing capacity on rail, on road, etc., there is a demand for transport of goods like steel, of goods like cement. And finally, there is also increasing focus on manufacturing output. And this is an area that I want to briefly talk about. The increase in demand for steel and cement will lead to an increase in logistics demand for steel and cement. And there is a lot of that which is already moving on the railways. There are initiatives I know that the railways has already taken to attract new wagon designs, to attract new technology to address these commodities. I want to talk about manufacturing goods. So what happens is, if you look at the modal share of rail versus road in India, and you start and you go back a little bit in history, go back to 1951, you were exactly the opposite of what you are today. In 1951, the data shows us that the rail share of cargo was in the range of 65 to 70%, and the road share was in the range of the balance 30 to 35%. Today, we are exactly at the opposite. The road share is close to 65, 70, and the rail, depending on how you measure, depending on when you measure, is still struggling under 30, maybe 28, 27, whatever, right? The interesting thing, if you look at this kind of change, is that the two shares were roughly the same in 1991. Post 91, the rail share has been declining and the road share has been going up. Post 91, if you look at the nature of industry in India, there has been a lot of growth in the manufacturing sector. The new industrialization, post-liberalization, has seen us move from a heavy industry, bulk cargo economy to one where there is a lot more activity in the manufacturing space. The railways has obviously missed that bus. All of that generation of output and the associate demand in logistics that came with it hasn't come to the railways because that growth is being reflected in the data. And I think that's something that we need to address. Again, when we're addressing it, there are three things we need to look at. If we need to target this manufacturing cargo and bring it onto rail, today less than 4% of this is moving on rail. Within the railway classification of commodities, it is literally classified as other goods. And you know, the classification is just a name, but it's a thought process. So I think if we need to go to 3,000 million tons, if we need to go to 40%, yes, coal, yes, steel, yes, cement will have to be carried in large quantities. There is no doubt about that. A lot is being done about that in the railways already. But if we want to carry more containerized goods, I think there are three things that we need to look at, and I will leave this discussion at just those 3 pointers. One, we need to look at price and not cost. The introduction of the DFCs has been talked about as reducing the unit cost of transport, but that cost reduction has not been experienced by the customer as yet. The customer continues to pay the same price for the product of manufactured goods, for the containerized product, as he was paying pre-DFC. Some benefit because the customer, or at least the service provider in containers, is the private sector to a certain extent. That sector has got some benefit in the form of their asset utilization improving, but the final benefit to the customer has still to be experienced. And I think that's a combination of what the railways and the sector have to do together. The second, and this is very critical, price is something that the sector the market will be able to find. The second issue is the issue of transit. Again, what is required if you want to capture this business is not faster. I don't need to run a super fast freight train. I need to run a reliable freight train. If I want to plan my supply chain as a manufacturing sector cargo owner, I need reliability that if my cargo leaves point A and has to get to point B, it will get there in 48 hours. It's not, and that it might even get there in 72 hours, but if I must have the reliability that it will get there in 72 hours. So I don't need the speed aspect, I need the reliability, because if there is no reliability, my supply chain goes haywire. The amount of inventory that I'm holding in the supply chain goes up and my cost goes up. So the second thing is we need to look at transit reliability as something that the railways has to consider offering as part of its service offering. So the traditional railway offering is that I will take your goods and I'll get them from A to B. I think we need to add to that, I will get them from A to B in this much time. And that has to be a commercial contract between the cargo owner and the railways. So that's the second thing we need to start approaching, thinking about. And the third thing, obviously, and it's again related to the first two, is if we need to get to a 40% rail share, there has to be more capacity on the Indian railways. I think the one major benefit we have seen, and it is still not fully utilized, is the use of double stack of containers on the dedicated freight corridor model. Today, we are only seeing that on one corridor between NCR and JNPT. As capacity on the railways increases, we need to look at expanding that model. We need to look at, can we have double stack on other corridors? So the other corridor which was built for more bulk freight, the eastern corridor, does not permit double stacking of containers. If I want to double stack, I have to change the size of my container. The container is a global product. It's a standard size. If you ask me to change the size of that to fit your specs, it will not take. It will just take too long to do that. So I think as the capacity increases, we need to look at, can we not only add to the capacity on track, but add to the capacity in double stacking, because that will allow me to actually address the problem of manufactured goods, of containerized goods, and bring in lighter cargo onto rail by double stacking and getting more tonnage per wagon, because that is a requirement of the railways, and understandably so. So that's the third thing I think we should look at. I will stop at that, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we move on to the next address, and it gives me immense pleasure to invite Shri Munish Ghuge, President ABB India Limited, to please deliver the address. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Dignitaries on the stage, delegates in this session, ASSOCHAM officials, thank you very much for this opportunity for me to present from the industry side as to how do we look at this very apt topic which has been raised by ASSOCHAM today. They have raised it very well as to what should be the safety technology. The money to railways comes from freight. So freight is one area. People look at a beautiful station or a nice train passing by, but people do not know what's happening in the infrastructure. What are the rails? Where are the electric supplies? Where the power supply is coming from? These are, I think, very good topics that will be discussed today in the sessions. And most importantly is the R&D and innovation that will happen. So I look forward to a very good session in the coming hours today for the day. I would at this point say only a few things which are top priority on my mind. Number one is on safety. We are now carrying people at a very high speed. As we speak today, like ABB has something like 1,000 locomotives, 980 to be precise. Half of them are carrying passengers. As we speak, 450,000 passengers are being hauled in this country. The safety of these people is of utmost importance. If you see, the safety standards came from the automotive industry. In a car, maybe 4 and 6 people are sitting. In aerospace, 350 people died in a Boeing, and look at the investigation and the fines. And look at the people that we are carrying. The 1,000 people, 20 coaches, 50 people, 1,000 people. Today, I am carrying 500,000 people across the length and breadth of this country. So safety is to be given the highest priority. Now, having said that, are there norms? There are a lot of standards which define the grade of automation. It is called GOA. We are now reaching driverless trains. There is safety and integrity levels that are being talked about. There are standards. Because when we, as ABB, supply the propulsion system, well, running the train is somebody else's job. But does the product that go into the train have all the required safety levels? Let's keep passengers aside. Look at goods. The length of the good train is so high, okay, 50 coaches, it's almost something like 2.5 kilometers. The driver cannot see the other end of the train. Now, when such a high inertia equipment is moving, as my colleague here rightly said, speed is not the criteria. What is required is reliability. And when he's taking such a long inertia with him, and he sees something and decides to make a brake, is the brake system as reliable as it is supposed to be? Okay, are there protections enough? It has come in automotive. That it doesn't happen that you're going with your family and there is a loose connection, or the brake did not work and the car did not work. That reliability is coming, and that comes from the propulsion systems that we are giving. The second part I would quickly touch upon is the technology part. technology was always seen as a black box in a country like this. Those days of black box are over. Elon Musk said patents is required for the weak because people invent something, make patents and make blocks for people to come there. If somebody tries to copy, then you have to pay a fee or sue them. Elon Musk Tesla car, you go there on his website, you register, you get the bill of material. Meta, WhatsApp also did the same thing. They have opened it. Google is also opening it for people. That why should only Google do the maps for the whole world? There is Ola is also doing it today. So technology is now being given to more and more. The more we absorb at our end, that will make our system sustainable. Sustainability is a very big word because we may get something, do it. Are we going to sustain it for 30 years? I'll give you a quick example. ABB brought the three-phase technology to India. All the know-how was given to CLW. They could write the programs, and that is why even today, 30 years later, those locomotives are still being run. Because if somebody comes with the technology and says, this is a black box, you do not know anything inside, then it is going to be a problem on sustainability. Even today at ABB, we do the same, that we make a train configuration, we make the architecture, we write the code, and give the source code for the country, for the people, for the end user to use, and that will make it sustainable. I think these are the two topics that I thought I should share with you, but I wish all of you a good day ahead, and there will be more deliberations on these topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guge, for beautifully setting the context and sharing the specifics. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we move on to the very prestigious segment of today's conference, which is the book release of the Knowledge Report. And I request our chief guest and our dignitaries to please do the honors. May I please also invite Mr. Ashutosh Bhandari from CRISIL to join us on the dais. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a knowledge report in joint collaboration of ASSOCHAM with CRISIL. I request all our dignitaries and sir to please do the honors. Let's have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, dignitaries. Please take your seats. So, ladies and gentlemen, moving ahead, and it gives me immense pleasure and privilege to invite our esteemed chief guest, Shri Mukul Saran Mathur, Additional Member, Commercial, Ministry of Railways, Government of India, to please deliver the inaugural address. Welcome, sir.
Very good morning to the distinguished audience, ladies and gentlemen, people on the dais. I think the previous speakers have given the right context, Mr. Animesh, Mr. Manish Puri, and the initial introduction. See, railway operates in a very, very challenging environment, and we need to understand. I'll just take a couple of minutes that how things are changing and what this government is doing to put rail back on track. Just a short comparison that what we were in 90s and where China was. I remember when we joined the services, at that time a lot of Chinese railway officials used to come and visit. I had accompanied many of them when the Delhi Metro was just being constructed. They used to come and see our reservation systems. They used to be amazed by the developments on Indian Railways. But somehow, as the previous speakers said, that we missed the bus at some point of time. If you look at how the network size was in, say, late 80s or early 90s, they were equal. The Indian railway network and the Chinese were perhaps in the range of, say, 55,000 or 58,000 kilometers, route kilometers. Both at that point of time were 0.3 trillion economy. So just at par. In 30 years, if you look right 2022 or 23, we were 3.7 or 3.8 trillion economy, and that climbed up to almost 18 to 19 trillion economy. The rail network, which was at par at that point of time, and we were pretty stagnant at, say, moving from 57, 55 to around 68,000 route kilometers currently. They have climbed up to 1,55,000 route kilometers. Why I'm mentioning is, why China have done a lot of things in manufacturing. They have perhaps also realized that railways is a very, very important tool of economic development. And that perhaps the present government, post-2014, have realized that. I'll just highlight a couple of things. I'm not a political person to criticize what were wrong or what were right previously. Obviously, we had done some good things to put things in perspective. If you look at Indian Railways, they are part of the same British rail system. Why we have prospered as compared to the neighbors. Why today Bangladesh Railway or Pakistan Railways, Sri Lankan Railways are not in the same reckoning as the Indian Railways. Because there were small steps, perhaps they are not talked about. They're not talked about. But we did it right. There were small steps, small baby steps leading to a larger ramification, say after 50 years, 60 years. Look at right into 50s. You had set up your own production units. Way back at that point of time, you decided that we want to localize. You brought technology, learned it, started manufacturing. ICF got set up, your locomotive manufacturing got set up. Look at 60s, 70s, 80s, you created Concord. Imagine the port liberalization happened in 1991. What would have been the state of affairs after the liberalization? Will the ports would have grown to the same extent in absence of an organization like Container Corporation, which preceded the port liberalization 10 years before? So somebody thought that this is a business idea which needs to be prospered. When we created the connectivity to the port after the liberalization, Mundra was the first PPP project we experimented, and I was part of it in 2002. Look what it propelled. The liberalization of the ports and the expansion of the minor ports in this country would not have happened if the railways would not have experimented with the rail connectivity with private investors. We are talking success stories in telecom, we are talking about success stories in road sector, but I think they were all in early 2000s. I remember Niti Aayog came up with their model documentations in 2007 or 8. But we had created a PPP framework right from 2002 onwards. If we would not have done that, the kind of economic growth that we are witnessing within the port sector would not have taken place. So why I'm mentioning is that perhaps these small steps were there, we were continuously taking, but perhaps they were not in the domain of people never realized that they will have such impactful impact on the economy. But there were also certain negative parts of it. If you look at the kind of return on investments on the capital assets that railways creates, because of course it's a balance you have to create between a commercial and a social organization. You can't expect that your return on investment from the capital assets created will be somewhere in the range of 9% or 10%. You're hardly same. For years together, the return was roughly in the range of 2%, 3%. Any funds that were given to the railways, we used to pay dividend at roughly around 7% to the central government in perpetuity. So earning at a lesser return and giving to the government back on whatever the capital support was at a higher return is nowhere makes an economic sense. With the merger of budget in 2016, the government waived this, that no more need of dividend. If you look at 2014, the budgetary support that the railways used to get was in the range of 50,000 crores. In 2007 or 8, it was roughly around 25 to 28,000 crores. The challenge within the organization is the manpower that you have, around 1.4 million at that time and now around 1.2 million. It is slightly less than the population of Australia. Not Australia, sorry, the combined defense forces. At one point of time, the railway employee strength was much higher than the Army, Navy, and the Air Force taken together. Now, no more, we are slightly less with the reduction taking place every year. But the challenge is that this is the only organization which bears the pensionary liability of its employees. The central government doesn't foot that bill. Whatever you earn, so major expenditure is on the manpower, which is frozen in terms of your pension liability. Your fuel expenses are frozen, you are incurring that. So out of 2,50,000 odd crore that you earn, 1,70,000 or 80,000 is frozen into these 2 or 3 expenditures. Your manpower cost, which is roughly around 60,000 crores. Your fuel bill, roughly in the range of 40,000 crores. And some bit of stores and all these things, the maintenance of the system. So what I'm saying is the challenges in which you are operating doesn't allow you that kind of freedom unless the government supports you. And perhaps that was realized post-2014, which I give credit to this government. Waiving of the condition of dividend. Secondly, supporting the capex of the railways. They realize that the system needs to be improved and a lot of money has to be pumped into. If you look at the capex expenditure budget of the central government, so the railways and the highways are the 2 major fund absorption organizations. Every year, we are consuming around 2.5 lakh crore, highway perhaps 3 lakh crore out of the total capital budget of, say, roughly 11 lakh crores. So 50% of the budget of the central government on the capital expenditure side is consumed by these 2 organizations. Now the challenge comes if you have those 2.5 lakh crores suddenly, a jump from 50,000 to 2.5 lakh over, say, last 10 years. The challenge is whether the absorption capacity is there within the country to absorb those kind of funds. The government can provide funds. We can change our processes. Slowly on the construction side, we change it to EPC mode where deliverables have to be fixed. Now the challenge is whether the private sector had that capability to deliver. Government can sanction corridor, we can create DFC, we can create high speed, but it's a transition period where perhaps the private sector is also learning and the capabilities have to grow. They have to realize that money is there for the taking. The capabilities have to be there. The big ticket project that the government did, high speed and DFC, you look at the kind of the spiraling effect in the economy, how it created the small organizations of construction organization into major giants. We were hardly doing project size of more than 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Now the local industry is capable enough to handle contracts or EPC worth 10,000 crores. So that's the difference that big ticket projects have done. In terms of modernization and infrastructure, you have, because of the fund availability, you have moved from track construction of 4 kilometers per day to 14 kilometers. Now we are doing 14 kilometers. As initial welcome address I said, we are perhaps the only country with the maximum electrification today. We will achieve 100% electrification by December. We are roughly around 95, 96% at the moment. You are moving into higher axle loads of 25 ton. You're creating, designing wagons in terms of capabilities. What you require for railways to function. One is the network constraint, which we are resolving in terms of creating more capacity. A lot of corridors have got sanctioned. You are focusing on mineral corridors, you are focusing on port corridors, your social corridors in terms of people connectivity. But the challenges still remain. As somebody said, that what has changed from last year to this year. On the passenger side, if I just quote, that perhaps we are every day moving around 2 crores of passengers. The Australian population, which I initially said, was roughly around 2.3 crores. So on a day-to-day basis, you are moving that kind of volume. I remember during the summer period, from last year onwards, we are moving almost 1,000 specials every day, just for the migrant population, because there was elections, there were demands, continuous summer rush, and that eats into your capacity. So this balance of commercial and your social objective creates a problem in terms of capacity constraints. Your fare structure, your kind of demand that creates on the systems. But I'm hopeful that things are on right track. If you look at Viksit Bharat, what the PM talks about, and the foremost condition is the passenger experience. You have to actually improve on the passenger experience. And Vande Bharat has turned out to be a major flagship product of the Indian Railways. We are expanding it from Vande Bharat chair cars to now metros, also sleeper. Perhaps in a month's time, we will have the first Vande Bharat metro train operating on IR. We'll soon be having this year Vande Bharat sleeper trains also. So slowly this phasing out will take place. From ICF coaches initially, where whenever the accident used to be there, the number used to be around 200, 250 deaths. Now with technology improvement, when you're into these German LHB coaches, you can see those devastating visuals of snaking around during the accident. But it protects people. When a high speed, as I said, that if you're braking, a short braking distance of the driver, those forces have to be transmitted down the line on the coaches. And it creates that staking effect. They are thrown here and there. But it doesn't actually kill people. The number of deaths are far, far less. So, and that's what the technology is. But there are also technological challenges that beyond a particular forces you cannot transfer because of the coupler strength. So those challenges will remain. But if you look at the annual budget, every year on infrastructure, this year on 24-25, roughly around 85,000 crore is being invested on network expansion. If you look at safety, yes, Kavach is under implementation. It will take time. Again, as I said, that it is not, the government can provide funds, it can provide technological support, but what the private industry has to come up with the capabilities in terms of execution capabilities have to be enhanced. We are looking at DFC. The delay in the last patch of the Veterna to JNPT, overdue. But if you look at, people may blame the government, but it's ultimately an EPC contract where a particular company was supposed to deliver 2 years back. They did not have the capability. They did not have the financial capability to do that kind of a project. They did not have the technical capability. But as a government, we are conscious that if you have to create the companies, we don't want to kill. Because ultimately, there are a handful of big companies who can deliver. Discharge of tenders, killing of tenders is a very, very small thing. It will not deliver infrastructure. You have to support the private sector, and that is what we are looking at while doing projects. that, okay, give extension, give kind of support, give financial support, give technological support. So in big ticket, that is something we are trying to do on the infrastructure, right? On the rolling stock side, if you look at the kind of wagon manufacturing orders that the government has placed in the last 2 years. Last year, we procured 23,000 wagons. This year, we are doing 37,000. So almost the industry has the orders of roughly around 75,000 wagons for the freight movement. Apart from that, there are various private schemes in which the investments are being generated. Special purpose vehicles can be procured by the private industry. But now the wagon industry has to come up to those challenges to deliver. Whether they have the capability to deliver those 100,000 wagon orders in a timely fashion. They have to upgrade. So with the network expansion, your challenges in terms of rolling stock also comes. On the locomotive side, we were procuring around 200, 300, 400 locomotives 10 years back. Now, every year you are procuring 1,300 locomotives, 1,400 locomotives. That's a requirement. They have gone in for privatizations. There are now almost 3 locomotive manufacturing companies with private sector. They are delivering. Perhaps some biggest private investments, I would say, is on the rolling stock side, both in wagons, coaches, and the locomotives. On the infrastructure side, there is still a challenge. When I say infrastructure, it is basically track is a challenge in terms of moving ahead from 14 kilometers much higher. Other small areas, because the budgetary allocation is high, there are always opportunities galore in all areas of passenger. You look at IT, the kind of integration. One of the major reform, perhaps people must not have seen very closely, is the railways refund process. If you Google right now what is the refund time that the railway used to take, it will say around 60 days or 45 days. Because apparently we were moving into computerization, but the integration of those individual applications were not happening on time. Now, I don't know how many of you are traveling on the railways and face this refund process. It is now within 24 hours. Whenever you file a claim of a refund from a ticket, we are processing those, 50% of those, whatever on a day-to-day got generated, are processed within 6 to 12 hours. And 95 to 96% are being done within 24 hours time frame. So from 45 days, what Google talks about, we are now into a one-day refund. That's a major passenger convenience measure. So we are looking at small issues. Rail Madad is another successful example of, I don't know how many of you use it. Every day on an hourly basis, one of the most robust complaint mechanism is today of Indian Railways. People are now ordering a water bottle as a complaint in Vande Bharat, because that reaction is much faster than the waiter coming into from 2 or 3 coaches behind. So all sort of complaint mechanism. Why I'm raising is that by Viksit Bharat, it's not only infrastructure. The whole experience and the gamut of experience has to change in terms of passenger. On the freight side, rolling stock, I have already mentioned. Another issue is the terminals. As somebody has pointed out, the Gati Shakti policy of the railways in terms of building freight terminals has given a very, very positive response. We have formed roughly around 200 odd terminals. Applications have been received. They are in various stages of development. We are involving the private sector so anybody can develop a private freight terminal now under a Gati Shakti policy on a railway land and as well as on a private land. Even a combination of both the lands is permissible now. So with time, we are moving into more and more flexible approach. Manish Puri had already talked about containerization, and Sanjay Bajpayee also talked about. Yes, I agree that on terminals in terms of freight, we realized that we have to move from the conventional commodities to a high-rated commodities. We are trying to develop a framework. We realize that container should be the future of transportation in this country, whether it is international or domestic. The challenge is the existing 1800, 1900 goods sheds that you have. Traditionally, they were within the cities or around the cities. You have limited space. How to make them container handling compliant is a challenge. And there is where the private sector has to pitch in. New terminals are fine, but closing down the existing, converting them to container cargo will be a challenge both for the industry and also for the railways. But the intent is there. Intent is there to move towards that. We are interested in moving towards bulk cement transportation. We want to facilitate that. We are looking at opportunities in fly ash transportation. That is another future area. We are looking at parcel traffic, palletization of parcel traffic. That is another important area that we want to work with the private sector. We have done an MOU with the Amazon, but still we are looking at ideas from the private sector, how we can move ahead on this. It has to be, if Amazon or Flipkart or they can move into standard boxes, why Indian Railways should not go in for that? So we are looking at those kind of ideas for implementation into parcel cargo, which will allow you for high-rated commodities or consignments to move over Indian Railways, because you have now efficient Vande Bharat trains, Rajdhani trains, which will be connected with various cities with better equipped handling facilities. So in terms of cargo, terminals, rolling stock, infra, IT, all gamut of activities that we are looking at, private investments. Perhaps with time, I hope that while the government policies will give a framework to encourage the private investment, private investor will also equip themselves with adequate knowledge in terms of, and also capabilities, so that we can actually achieve the government's vision of Viksit Bharat. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your words of wisdom and the factual articulation. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I now invite Shri D.S. Rajora, sir, Associate Secretary General ASSOCHAM, to please deliver the concluding remarks. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, esteemed guests, industry leaders, and participants. As we conclude the inaugural session of this conference, I take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude to all the distinguished speakers who have shared their valuable insights today. First, we are immensely grateful to Sri Mukul Saran Mathur, Additional Member, Commercial, Ministry of Railways, Government of India, for being with us this morning and for his comprehensive overview of the government's initiatives in steering the modernization of our railway system towards a brighter future. We are thankful to Sri Deepak Sharma, CEO, River Engineering, and Senior Member of ASSOCHAM, for highlighting significant areas of modernization of railways. A special thanks to Sri Sanjay Bajpayee, Co-Chairman, National Council on Logistics and Warehousing, ASSOCHAM, and Executive Director, Container Corporation of India, for his thought-provoking remarks that have provided with a comprehensive understanding of the sector. Our sincere thanks to Sri Munish Guge, President, ABB India, for his significant input on the infrastructure, technology, and of course on the safety measures. We are thankful to Sri Animesh Gupta from Goldratt Research Lab for his innovative perspectives, which have opened new avenues for us to explore in the field of railway modernization. We also extend our gratitude to Sri Manish Puri, President ACTO, whose valuable insights have greatly contributed to our collective understanding of the importance of modernization, particularly the freight container side. Once again, I thank each one of you to coming this morning and participating in this important session today. We look forward to the continued deliberation throughout the day as we work together towards modernization of railway for a prosperous and developed Bharat. Please join me in thanking our chief guest, Mr. Mukul Saran Mathur once again for being with us. With this, I invite everyone for a quick tea break, and please rejoin again for the next session. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rajora sir. I request our dignitaries to please join for a group photograph. With that, we quickly announce a networking tea break. We'll see you back again in 5 minutes from now for the next session. And on behalf of the entire ASSOCHAM committee, I thank our esteemed dignitaries for joining us this morning for the inaugural session. Thank you.